1, 2, we should be now live. Let's go ahead and flip that over. I'll take that graphic off screen. I'll leave the live up there. Hello everybody, welcome to Build or Buy. We're going to have a guest speaker today, and I'm going to first mention that we don't know about Nick Streeter, but we have heard about Joe, and Joe is doing better, but he's in a hospital. Isn't that what you said, Ed? Okay, I appreciate that. That was last week. Well, I thought they might show up. I expected them. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to get in touch with them. A couple of things we're going to do after we get through with our guest speaker, and I'm hoping he'll be able to come back and do this again sometime. Ray Morris is here. I'm glad you're here, Ray. Ray used to be the president of LPC. We're going to be looking at Jeannie's computer after a while when we get a chance afterwards. We're going to look at upgrading some of her USB stuff, and I'm not sure how far we're going to go, but we're going to find out. I want to go ahead and get in with our guest speaker, and this is Ralph Gonzales. He's agreed to come in and speak with us. Lou has heard him speak before, and I think Jeannie wanted to hear him, so we're going to have that opportunity today. So let's flip over and let's welcome Ralph. It's all yours.
Thank you very much. My own there. I'm on. Ralph Gonzales. Yes, ma'am. How y'all doing this afternoon? Thank you so very much for inviting me. I know that I've spoken with our church group in regards to some scams, 39ers group, and was asked to come out here and see if maybe we can provide you some information, knowing that the internet is always a problem sometimes with scammers and hackers, and also we have these vendors out there that are always knocking on our doors trying to sell us something that we don't want to buy. So again, losing money is one of our issues. A little bit about me. I am retired from the Houston Police Department after 25 years of service. I then went to the District Attorney's Office where I worked as an investigator in special crimes. Then did 16 years with the Cypress-Fairbanks Independent School District. And with them, I was the director over campus safety, where I was involved in putting together their emergency management plans, evacuation plans, and how to deal with certain emergencies and how to respond to them when first responders came in, active shooter situations. Then I retired from with the Harris County Sheriff's Office, where I was the spokesperson for under Ron Hickman, who was lost of re-election. So that's a little bit of the history that I've got. But again, what can we do to keep from being a victim? And that's the most important part. There are many ways that we can become victims. There's also many scams out there that we have to be aware of. And we need to be constantly aware of what information we're putting out to the online. Some of the, excuse me, I've got some notes here. Some of the scams that we've run across are where the scam starts, I'm sorry, is the technology makes the robocalling. And many of you have gotten that robocalls where it just constantly, if you'll notice, I don't know if you have cell phones or if you have telephones that have phone ID numbers, you're going to notice that the first 4 or first 6 letters, or first 6 numbers are exactly your cell phone or your home phone number. So like mine is 281-293. It's amazing, on my cell phone I'll always get 281-293 and then various different 4 numbers. And that's basically robocalling. That's basically people trying to use your similar number to make you think that it's someone in the neighborhood that is calling you, or someone that you know that's calling you. So they use all kinds of scams in order to do that. Several of them that we've run across, which are very interesting, is the IRS telephone scams. And I don't know if you've run across any of these, but you'll receive a phone call from the IRS or individual claiming they're with the IRS. And they'll inform you that right now there is a amount that you owe because there was some kind of error made on your IRS return. They want more money. They'll advise you to acknowledge that you do owe money, and then they'll give you instructions on how to go to a Walmart and get a green card, what we call a green card, which is basically a payment card. They'll be very forceful. They'll even tell you that there's a police officer standing outside the back door waiting on you if you do not respond to their request. So they get real vicious sometimes, and they get real aggressive. So, please, when you get these, if you have a CPA or if you do your own taxes, and many of us are on fixed income, we know what we're paying, we know what we owe. So do not acknowledge, do not even give any kind of information, do not verify any kind of information, because it's very, very funny how these people can go onto a public site, meaning like white pages, pay a fee, and they can get your name, your kids' names, they can get your address, they can get your phone numbers, they can get a lot of personal information that you didn't think they could get, other than your date of birth, your social security number, information like that. So you want to be real careful about who you're talking to about these types of scams. I don't know if many of you have heard, there was one guy that was involved in a romance scam. I don't know if you saw that on the news recently. He got online and was on a dating service, and all of a sudden this gorgeous lady just appears and says she's madly in love with him and wants to marry him. And as gullible as this guy was, he continued the communication between he and this female. Well, eventually she was able to convince him that her father had passed away, but he had a lot of money saved up or in a trust fund, but she could not get to that money until she paid some attorneys like $5,000 or $6,000.
Ouch.
So he paid the $5,000 or $6,000. Then she'd come back to him and say, well, the attorney needs a little bit. He ended up paying $80,000 before he lost his love life.
Wow.
So it's out there and it's happening. Another scam that you may run across is the subpoena scam. How many of you guys have heard where you get subpoenaed or you get a phone call from an individual who says you've been subpoenaed, you've missed your subpoena, that they're coming to arrest you and take you to jail, but if you pay X amount of dollars, like $50 or $100, they can take care of that for you. You don't have to show up. Don't fall for that. Again, those are scams. The DA's office will not come out and arrest you unless you have a warrant for your arrest. And it's not the DA's office, it's ordinarily the local police department. Anytime you get pressure, I got to have the money, you got to pay it now, you need to step back and you need to reconsider what exactly these guys are talking about. The green money debt card that I was talking to you about, majority of your scammers use this method. After they give you the information and you write it all down, then they'll instruct you to go to a local store like Walmart or Kmart's not here any longer, but Kroger store, Randall's, or whatever, and purchase one of these money pack cards. It's like a PayPal. And what they do is that they'll instruct you how to make the phone call drop to that local scam card, or to this local card, money debt card. And once they get those numbers, then that's all they need, because then they can cash that card, and now you're out all the money, and it was just a scam in the very beginning. So you need to be very careful. You don't want to be, don't want to take those instructions. Someone tells you you need to go to Walmart and go buy a money pack card. Don't do it. I mean, it's ridiculous. Another scam that we've run across out there is one called Can You Hear Me? And this is really funny because what happens is that they are recording your voice. So when you pick up that phone and they're talking and they go, "Can you hear me?" you're going to say, "Yes." And that's all they need. Now they have it recorded, and now they can go to a third party, and whenever they ask questions on the line, when they're opening up any accounts or anything like that, is they just record that yes. They put it on the phone where the third party receives a yes answer, and they're ready, they're good to go. So a lot of times these things are used. I know I got several of those calls. Can you hear me? And it just, for some reason, you know, you want to say yes, yeah, I can hear you, but then I caught myself because, I mean, we're all victims. We can all fall into that trap if we're, you know, we don't keep our attentive and we're not, you know, on top of these types of scams that are constantly coming down the tubes. But yeah, I told him, I said, I'm sorry, I can't hear you. And there was dead silence. And so I just hung up the phone. So I shouldn't even said that, but basically you hear someone like say, "Can you hear me?" I guess no, or just hang up, you know, don't say yes, because that's another way to get you to get this "Can you hear me" scam.
Or repeat it back to him, "Can you hear me?"
Exactly. You can always go back, you know, ask a question with a question. Just hang up. Don't call them back because it's the phone numbers on there, because a lot of times these scammers have their numbers mimic who they're actually trying to call. So if it says, we've run across some issues where the phone number goes back to a Houston Police Department, and you call that number and some guy picks it up and he says he's Detective so-and-so with the Houston Police Department, then, you know, you don't know whether or not that's it or not. What you want to do, hang up, don't have a discussion, call the main number to the Houston Police Department, and then contact the division or whoever claimed that it was trying to get in touch with you. Just don't even go there. We also have, if you do not call registry, there's a do not call registry, which is donotcall.gov. And you can go there to cut down some of the telemarketing and these sales calls. So if you're not on that, it's a good idea to try to get that done. I'm constantly blocking numbers on my phone over and over and over again. They seem to, I don't know how many times they find phone numbers that they can use. But they're always there. Also, check your credit card phones, your phone and cable statements carefully for any unfamiliar charges. If you think you've been a suspect being victimized, you know, you want to call your carrier and make sure that everything that the billing is correct. There was a situation here recently that I spoke with a lady, and she was telling me, or actually I also saw this on the news, where people go to the store and they use a debit card or they'll use a credit card, and it happened at Walmart. And this is not despairing Walmart, but it just happened. It happened to be one of the stores that was highlighted. But the cashier there, when she rang up all the information, they always ask you, "Do you want cash back?" And you'll say no, and then they'll give you your card and you move on. Well, this person decided we'll stand right there and look and see the cash back, and she was actually charged a cash back of $20, $30, $40, $50. It could be any amount.
That adds up.
So you got to be careful when you look at that receipt. Make sure that they did not do a cash back on you, because they'll just pocket that money and put it, you know, and stick it, you know, take it out of the register. You wanted cash back. You said no. She did it anyway. You gave you your receipt. You walked on, and so she just pockets the money. So that's one way that they can catch you on these types of scams also. Oh, FEMA. Well, I'm going to get to FEMA in just a minute, but these charity scams. You know, how many times have you been called by the police officers,
Brotherhood of Police
benevolent
Officers?
brotherhood of officers, or the DPS support? I mean, that's telemarketing. They're out there calling. They're trying to get some money. I would suggest if you want to donate to a police department or to a police agency, then you go to their website, you find their organization, which, you know, the Houston Police Department has the HPOA, or I mean the Houston Police Officers Association. They have the other organizations out there for charity, for burial services. So, you know, go to the right source. Don't allow a charity to call you. And just the other day, I got a call from the breast heart group. So, and I actually told the woman, I said, you know, I'm not going to commit online on this telephone call to any amount of money. Send me a card, send me a request, and my wife may end up giving you a lot more than what you're asking. Well, no, just I'm not trying to do this, not trying to do that. Just give me $10, give me $15. Just commit to that. Can we commit? Can we get that? And I finally said, ma'am, I'm sorry. You send me the information, and I will give you all the money you need. So, but it never hung up, and that was the last I heard of it. So again, do not give out any kind of financial information. We don't want to give out Social Security numbers, date of birth. You know, and there's a lot of times that the companies will ask for, well, I need verification on the telephone. Companies will not ask for your passwords or Social Security numbers online, or credit card numbers, unless you're actually working with that organization or with that vendor. Now, if that's the vendor and you know that that's who you're dealing with, then that's great. But please do not give out that kind of information. I mean, it's just, you sign your death warrant right there. Grandparent scams. How many of y'all run across that one? This is where you get a phone call and stating, hey, grandma, granddaddy, I'm out here, I'm in trouble, I'm broke down, I'm in Austin, I'm in, we got several from the United Kingdom, you know, and I didn't know my son had money to even go to Conroe, much less go to the United Kingdom. But they'll call you and say, you know, I need help, you know, and then if you're not sure, ask them a personal question. You know, well, how's Johnny doing? And you know, Johnny's not even their brother. Or you know, how's Sally doing? You know, Sally with you? And they'll give you, because they don't know. They're just taking a risk, hoping that you will give them any money. Or if you know that all your grandchildren are safe, hang up. Just don't even give them anything. The Nigerian money scam. How many of we run across that one? Everybody, I think, has gotten a Nigerian letter or email stating that for just $5,000, I can get you millions and millions and millions of dollars. And number one, I don't know anybody in Nigeria. And number two, I'm not going to give any money for anything or something like that. So yeah, it's just, they kind of scream at you sometimes whenever you get these emails. You kind of go like, well, no, not today. So just be aware of that. Some guys and ladies are on video and are involved in video games. And a lot of times, if you're not careful, you'll get an email or something like that stating, I need for you to share your password so that 2 players can play at the same time. Now, I don't know how many of you guys are involved in video games. I'm not. But if you are, just remember, don't share passwords. It's the same thing as opening up the book for finances, because then they can start using that password in order to start funneling out money. So just be aware that there is no password passing along, social security numbers, personal information. You don't want to do that. Lotteries and sweepstakes scams, nothing's free. Nothing is free, folks. As hard as we work, every nickel and dime that we've received, we've worked for. So just know that you get a phone call or you get an email stating that, for X amount of dollars, if you'll just provide us to get you roll into and get you more money, get you the $7 million that you've just won out of this lottery from Las Vegas or from Pennsylvania or wherever. Just be aware that we don't want to get involved in any of that. There's some scams out there that you just need to be very aware of. I don't know if you're aware of, but are you familiar with the tire scam? Did I talk to y'all about that yet? The tire scam is where you're driving along and all of a sudden some guy's honking next to you pointing at your tire and saying, hey, something's wrong with your wheel, something's wrong with your tire, you need to slow down, you need to stop, pull over, I'm a mechanic, I can help you. And the next thing you know, you pull over and they get out of the car and you're getting robbed. So you just need to be very careful. If you have a situation where you think maybe they're right, something about your tire, drive to a service station. Drive to a large grocery store, an area where there's a lot of people, and do that, and not with this individual, because this individual is only there trying to rob you. That's all they're there for. They're trying to get you to pull over in a secluded area and rob you, so don't want to do that. Another scam that we've run across, contractors. Now with this flooding and everything else that's been going on, you've got contractors knocking on your door. And you have to be very, very careful. Unless you know that individual, or unless you call for that individual, I wouldn't deal with them at all. Unless you've gotten a referral from someone, someone tells you, hey, this is a good guy, call him. But make sure you initiate the call. Somebody that comes to the house, tree trimmers come to the house, oh, you need trees this, trees that, and they can talk a good talk, because they'll sit there and, oh, that tree's rotting, look at all this mold, look at this, look at that. Well, sometimes trees do that, they'll shed, they'll mold, they'll lose their limbs or lose their leaves in certain times of the year. So please just be aware that a guy that comes over and knocks on your door is not going to. Just recently, we had a group that delivers meat to residences, and I won't name the name, but they came to the house, knocked on the door, and said, "Hey, we've got we've got a whole bunch of meat here left over. So and so didn't want it. We had a delivery. We've got so much ground beef. We've got so many steaks. We can give it to you at a real discount price." How do you know that meat's not 10 years old? Or just frozen blocks? And once you thaw it out, it's inedible. It's not even food. So don't buy thinking you're going to get a big break on something. Just remember, there's people out there that want to take advantage of you. They want to use these scams in order to get your money and leave you with nothing else. On the home improvement scams, some of these things that ought to raise your red flags should be that they're door-to-door salespersons. They offer you incentives. Hey, if you refer me to Billy or to your neighbor across the street, I can give you a break on yours. services. They pressure you for an immediate decision. You know, hey, this is the only price I got going right now. This is today's price. If I can't get it for you, you know, if I got to come back, it's going to cost you double. Well, too bad. They only accept cash. They ask you to go get any required permits, name and addresses. You can't verify that information. You go online. If somebody got you a card or somebody go online and find out who they are. They should have a website, or at least have some kind of referrals that you can go to. They don't provide you any references. You know, who have you cut your grass for? Who have you trimmed the tree for? Who have you done this or who have you done that? Cannot provide proof of insurance is extremely important, because they fall off your roof, they fall out of the tree, you're the one that's going to get stuck with the bill. And they have a great price, and the materials, and I think the PowerPoint's off there.
Oh, put the PowerPoint back up. There we go. Sorry.
They have great price because they have material left over. You know, I just did a house down the street. I've got, you know, all this lumber left over. I can come over and do that right now. I can build your fence right now. So just be careful. Use reputable people that when you deal with these kind of vendors. Ransom scams. You'll even get something on your computer that says your computer has been locked and has the official seal of the FBI. That's all a scam. Also on these ransoms, don't notify the, you know, sometimes your computer be breached. Do not respond to these ransoms. They'll send you an email saying, you know, if you do this, you do that, Billy will be okay, your ex-wife, I don't know, just whomever. And you have 48 hours, don't call the police, blah, 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 blah. Go, you know, if you get something like that, call the police department. Let them know, okay? You don't want to be a victim to that. Identity and credit card theft, man, that is crazy out there. You've got to be extremely careful when you're giving your credit cards. A lot of times they'll take that credit card and walk away, and what they can do is they can scam it, come back, and then all of a sudden, or they'll run the copy twice, and then all of a sudden you find that you're being charged with all kinds of incentives that you didn't even want to buy. So you've got to be extremely careful with those things. You don't want to allow that credit card to get out of your sight. Your debit cards, take care of those. Be sure that we don't walk away with them. The identity card theft and credit card theft, again, you want to secure your Social Security numbers. A lot of us have a Social Security card in our wallets. You know, if there's any way that you can memorize that number, please try to do so. You lose that wallet, and all of a sudden they've got some very, very important information that they can get to. So you want to try to keep those out of reach. Don't respond to unsolicited requests for personal information. Your name, birth date, Social Security number, or bank account number by phone, by mail, or online. You never want to give that information out. You want to be extremely careful. Now, there are physicians sometimes, they want the last four of your Social Security number. Fine, that's pretty common practice. With the vendors that you're working with, the credit card companies that you're working with, the doctor sometimes will request that information. So if you know who you're talking to, that's perfectly fine, but you don't just want to give that information out on the telephone. Jumped off again. You want to pay attention to your billing cycles on your credit cards. Review your receipts as they come in. Then you want to shred the receipts, credit offers, account statements, and expired cards. to prevent the dumpster divers. And we'll also, we've also found where if you throw this stuff away in the trash, then some crook can actually pick up that form, that application, fill it out, have it sent to a different address, and now he's got a credit card in your name. So be real careful with just throwing that stuff in the trash. If you have a safe personal information, you want to do that, you want to take care of that, place it in a secure location. Create complex passwords. Those of you now, you're in this computer club, you want to create complex passwords and order credit card reports at least once a year. You know, Equifax and the other two, make sure that everything is good on your side. A lot of times we get complacent, we sit back, we just allow ourselves to year after year after year, and all of a sudden we find out we've been hit up with a big bill. So be careful with those. How to protect, again, from identity theft. Don't carry anything that includes your Social Security number. Don't give business address, your Social Security number just because they ask. Give it only when you're required, and check your credit report every 12 months. Protect your computers by using firewalls, anti-spam viruses, software, and changing your passwords. And do not ever, ever give personal information over the phone. Never. Don't do it. We roll into medical identity theft. A lot of times it's increased 22% since 2013. We're losing 65% of victims are paying out-of-pocket costs. There's about a 20 billion estimated. So again, guard your Social Security, Medicare. You'll notice now, I think Medicare is changing our cards not to have a Social Security number on it. If you notice, your Medicare card has your Social Security number on it. So there's a process now in place where they're changing that to take that Social Security number off, give you an ID number of some sort. Because you lose that Medicare card, they've got your Social Security number. So you want to be very careful of that. Review your explanation of benefits. That's EOBs that they send you out on your Medicare summary notice to make sure that the claims match the services you receive. And then request and carefully review a copy of your medical records for inaccuracies and conditions that you don't have. For being treated for pregnancy and you're a man, you got a problem. Again, the medication scans, the spot of fraudulent cure. You know, you don't get cured overnight from cancer. You don't get cured overnight from diabetes. All of these things, you know, you don't want to, the natural cures, again, the miracle cures, it'll take asthma and everything out of your system in 5 minutes. Those are things, you know, really kind of ridiculous. But again, don't send, you know, $150 to get a bottle of cure-all. It's just a scam. So unless you know that your doctor prescribes it, then I wouldn't mess with it. Again, the one product does all instantly, personal testimonies instead of scientific evidence. It's all natural. And again, you want to check with your doctor. If you're tempted to do something like that, check with your doctor. You know, there are some good herbal medications out there, and a lot of us, I know my wife gives me a lot of it, but again, make sure that the doctor's aware of what you're taking, okay? Collections, again, just hang up. These guys get on the phone, they scream at you, they yell at you. You owe money from a credit card that was 2 years now in error. Just back off, get their name, get their phone numbers, and call back. You don't want to get pressured into going and giving them a bank code or a credit card number. just to get them off you, because they'll get real nasty on the phone with you. So we don't want to deal with those kind of folks. Again, bottom line, we do not give out personal information. Don't give out your date of birth, social security numbers, credit card information, okay? Mail, subscription scams. My mother-in-law is in a nursing home right now, and she must get tons and tons of requests for magazines, and bless her soul, she'll just fill them out and send them, and send money with them. So you've got to be real careful of that, especially if you have people that are in a dementia stage, that they'll be taken advantage of very quickly. There's a lot of mail that we get that looks official. It really does. It looks like it came from the government, or it came from the insurance companies, or it came from someone else, and it's not. And if you do get something, get on the phone, give them a call and say, hey, you know, what is this? I just received this in the mail. I got something from online from my Discover card, stating me that my Discover card was in jeopardy, that I needed to go to another site and complete this information. Well, I went to the other site and looked at it, and it was requesting my personal information on it. So I called Discover Card and their fraud unit and talked to them and said, hey, did you know this is coming out on emails? So they need to hear about that also, because then it makes them more aware of what's going on with their card company, with their cards. So be aware of that. Where can you get the information? The Better Business Bureau, from Social Security offices, from the United States Postal Service, from HPD, Federal Trade Commission, Consumer Fraud, and the Harris County District Clerk's Office, Jury Fraud. So these are some areas that you can go to, that you can go online. I left Lou a copy of this PowerPoint presentation, and next time she comes back, she'll have everyone a copy for your personal use. So unless we have some questions, I'm here for you. Yes, sir.
Jack. Let's get a mic over there.
I see a lot of TV spots for the metal mesh billfolds or envelopes that you can keep credit cards in. It was my understanding that those only worked with the RFID credit cards, and they kind of went obsolete when the chip ones came out.
Right.
Is that right? And those are useless, or?
Well, you know,
is it still possible to scan a credit card?
It's still possible, because they do have devices that can come by and pick up those numbers. I actually had a little hard plastic one that opened up into separate files. But you know, again, if you're going to feel good about having something like that, it wouldn't bother me at all. I mean, there are individuals out there that have these electronic devices that can scan ID numbers. I mean, it's been on the news, it's been reported, but I haven't heard anything recently, though.
Yeah, the only ones I've ever actually seen scanned were the ones that had an RFID device in them, and those all had the little antenna with the symbol on the back.
Right.
But I think the people selling the mesh pocketbooks are a scam myself.
Well, yeah, it's you know, you may want to even contact someone that maybe in the consumer fraud area to find out whether or not they even work. You know, a lot of times they do and they don't. Yes, sir.
You're talking about medication scams. Are you referring to the ones that are on TV?
Yes, yes. The ones that usually come out and say, you know, for $19.95 we can send you a cure for your asthma, or we can send you a cure for diabetes, or we can send you a cure for your. I'm not really sure how the have you seen the ones where I think one of the football players wears a mesh with copper? You know, and a lot of us wore copper bracelets thinking it would help with our arthritis, and it didn't help me at all. I mean, I still have it in my thumb. So, yes, sir.
You mentioned one thing I've done with all my credit cards like this is I've set it up where I get an email every time something is charged to the credit card.
Yes.
And normally I can be on the phone and order something, and one particular credit card, it'll hit my email before I'm off the phone.
I agree.
So, you know, that's good, and you just check those things, and it sure has made life a lot easier.
Oh yeah, when I was with the DA's office, we had an individual that used a credit card, and it was easier for the credit card company to suffer that loss, which is $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, than to prosecute that individual. It was harder to get a case against him than it was for them just to pay it off, because we were footing the bill already. But now, and I agree with you, just recently I got online to try to use my credit card, and the product was from the United Kingdom. Software, yeah. And so, man, they hit me up real quick and said, hey, you're trying to buy something overseas. We're not going to accept that unless you tell us that's what you want to do. So they froze it, you know, until that was taken care of. But yes.
Yeah, mine was from Spain.
Yeah, yeah. So it's quick. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about.
Straight in.
I have a question about using credit cards in restaurants. You're always required to surrender your card to the server, and they take it away. Is that safe? How do you get around it?
I would suggest that if that's the case, you keep an eye on that credit card, making sure that there's nothing else that gets popped up on it, because you get a monthly statement, right? So in that monthly statement, review it. Again, they can use that credit card and make a copy of it if they want to, but you know, I think a lot of companies are aware of that, and they want to make sure that type of fraud is not taking place, because it's bad on them, but it can happen. So I would check my monthly statement, make sure there's nothing else there for a while, making sure that they don't use that card. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
The safest way is to use Apple Pay if you have an Apple iPhone, or if you have an Android, use Google Pay. You don't give your credit card out.
I've heard a number of years ago, not too many, that this type of thing you're discussing right now is really no longer a problem, that people just don't steal credit card numbers that way. It's too inefficient. It's very small time that they do it online, that you know, they get a million credit card numbers at a time, and so that's where the serious action is. That the waiter running the second copy is kind of rare. Can you confirm or deny that?
Well, I guess I'm talking back when we used to have the card that scanned it, and you had the carbon copy and you had the paper copy. But now you have the chip that just inserts, or they have the stripe that scans. So it's a little difficult to do that, but they do have devices. If they want to, there are devices they can scan it, and it'll hold that information until they download it into something else.
Well, the most recent thing I saw is just within the last week, is that a lot of places already don't require signatures for credit transactions, and that other places are going to drop it because for some reason they say there is no security in the signature portion of the transaction. And I guess it makes a little bit of sense, because nobody checks it against anything, so they don't have any idea if it's correct. But the thing that surprised me is that they think that the card itself now supplies lots of security. But seems to me that what they're actually saying is that the card is the only thing, and if somebody has your card, he's got you, and it doesn't matter, you know, what he does with it until you cancel that card. He's just going to use it.
Exactly.
But they're saying no. But today's cards, you know, there's no reason to have a signature. That card is as secure as it can be. Well, as long as you've got it, that's true.
Well, yeah, as long as it's in your possession,
Yeah,
not
right.
in their
They
possession.
didn't. I just didn't understand why they kept stressing that. You know, signing it doesn't do anything. The card is enough.
How many of you who use your debit card or your credit card are even asked for a second form for a driver's license? How many times have y'all asked that? Rarely are people asked to provide another form of ID. So that's why these crooks can run in, use a credit card, and just get their girlfriend to go in and identify themselves as because they don't ask. And when they do ask, then that's when they're caught. So the companies, the vendors, the restaurants need to get a second ID, making sure that this debit card is being used by, you know, whomever that person says they are. Lady right there. Yes, ma'am.
This question is in reference to real estate scam.
To what, ma'am?
Real estate scam.
Real estate, okay.
If somebody owns a real estate and lives overseas and they're advertising their condo for sale, of course you go through the title company and the realtor, but how do we know, how do we check that person they really own the property?
The only way that you would possibly know is go actually to the site and do the research yourself. Go to the country wherever you're interested in buying this condo.
No, question. Buying the condo in U.S., in Houston, but the person who owns it lives in Africa.
You can go to the Harris County, and you can go through their records, deeds, and make sure that it is in their name. You can do that research online also. But again, I'd be real careful about that, only because maybe they don't own it. Maybe it was their relative or maybe a friend.
Exactly.
With the same name or a similar name. And I would be very, very, unless you're dealing with a realtor and that realtor has done all the research and can convince you that it's good, then
title insurance.
I wouldn't mess with it.
Pardon me? Insurance?
Yeah, it's one more.
Well, the title company insures it, but not for the full amount.
No. Yeah. Again.
Chicago major insurance companies?
You can get 100% coverage.
From the title company?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good to know.
We're learning a lot. Go ahead. All right. Any other questions? Well, listen, thank you so very much.
Wait, got one.
Yep.
Got another one?
One last?
I was just going to mention new improved version of the cash back at the cash register scam that I had pulled on me. Went through Walmart, the self-pay checkout, and there was an item already on the scanner. So I called the young lady back, asked her to clear it, and she did, and then she picked up and checked out all my items, which was nice of her. And then she asked for my credit card. I gave it to her. She ran it through. And of course, she's standing right in front of the machine, took the receipt, folded it face down over the card, handed it back to him, and said, have a nice day. Well, fortunately, that was at the end of the billing cycle. And when I got the bill, I immediately saw what remembered what it was. Not only that, I have never in my life gotten cash back on a credit card, just something I don't believe in. And I think they just got tired of dealing with me. They finally took the $200 off. But she was smooth. Not only that, she was the best dressed checker I've ever seen at Walmart. she was a young lady, had on a skirt,
well, she was
blouse,
distracting your attention. That's all.
Hose and heels. But she was good. She was smooth. I bet she made a lot of money that way.
Oh, I know.
Isn't that dirty?
I don't know, some of you guys, I mentioned FEMA a second ago. FEMA now does send out people, in order to look at those houses that have been flooded. But, we've had people in the neighborhood that didn't lose anything, did not even make a claim, and FEMA's there asking a bunch of, FEMA fraud is out there trying to get personal information. Just be real careful. If you didn't ask for, or if you're not requesting FEMA funds for any damages or flooding that occurred at your house, just be real careful of that, okay? Yes, sir.
About a year and a half ago, I was in British Columbia. And in about the 5 days I was there, eating 3 meals a day, I never once had a server walk away with my card. They always bring something to your table where you can, watch the transaction in progress. And I don't know if that's like a law in British Columbia, but I mean, everybody was doing it. So sounds like a pretty good idea for other places to pass a law like that.
A lot of times what I do on my bills when I get a credit card or something like that, I'll circle the amount just so if there's ever a question on that receipt, that's the receipt I looked at. And if they try to submit a different receipt. So just be real cognizant of the amount, especially if they're tacking more money onto it. Yes, sir.
The way they did your credit card, that's standard across Canada. All places in Canada do that method. Well, I don't know if it's by law, but every restaurant, every place you go, it's done that way.
Any more questions? Any more comments? Thank you for your presentation. We appreciate you coming today.
Thank you very much.
Now remember, we're streaming this live online, so it's going to take a few minutes while we change our setup. We had some glitches in the beginning. I don't know why I couldn't get the computer synced on the input it did, but right now it's all working. Everything's being streamed live. Joe is with us right now, for those that don't know. So, man, that's fantastic. Now, I'm going to go to the back, and I'm going to need some help with the cameras because I'm going to get Jeannie's computer, and I'm going to bring it up front because we're going to take a look at what Jeannie was trying to work on last week. Thank you, Ralph, for what you did for us today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yes, sir. And anytime you want to come back, you're welcome to it. I want to thank Lou for getting Ralph to come in and talk. It's interesting. This is a big problem we've talked about in the past. I think the last one that got scammed was probably Glenn when he went to one of the ATMs in the area that he's not used to. And somebody followed him from that ATM to the place he went to go eat. And then while he was in eating, they got into his car and got what he got from the ATM. That just really, really was, to me, very upsetting. So you got to be careful, especially this day and time with so much stuff going on. Okay, I'm going to go to the back and get Jeannie's computer, and I'm going to bring it up front. Now, Jeannie's going to be teaching Chinese.
What do you need help with?
I need help carrying all this stuff up here. I'm going to get this computer and take it up.
Do you need this?
I will probably use that one.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is take this up. I need that monitor back there. I'll get it for you. We got lots of stuff plugged in around here. And I think I know what was wrong in the converter, but until I have time to go through it, it's only a theory.
Have a monitor cable somewhere, all it's there is power cable.
Yep. What we're going to do, thank you. Got a keyboard, we got a mouse. Now Jeannie was having difficulty with ports on this, so what I'm going to do is take a look at what she's trying to do and see what needs to be done. Can I get you?
Oh,
thank you. It's all right. I'm going to set all these parts over here in a chair for the moment. Now, Jeannie's got some headphones she bought that are USB. She has a camera she bought that is also USB. And she ended up with an external 7-port hub that's also USB. Now, this 7-port hub from Inland happens to be USB 3. Jeannie has no USB 3 ports. Jeannie has 4 USB 2 ports out the back. One's being used. She's got a dongle there for ASUS something. She's got 2 USB 2 ports out the front. And this was one of the favorite cases we used to use. This was TU-124, I believe it was. And that was one of the cases that was just bulletproof. We use those for a long time. So for the moment, I'm going to move some of this stuff because I'm running out of space. Before I mess with a computer, I like to plug it in and make sure it works. And what I'm proposing to do, as we look at the front of this, we've got a couple of USB 2 ports down here on the bottom in front, which is nice. But this case, and this is one of the reasons you want to get a case that's got drive bays in it, because we have 1, 2, 3, and there's another one right here where a 3.5-inch device can be installed. All we have to do is pop the front panel off. So we're going to probably put some USB 3 ports in here. The only thing she's got is a floppy drive. That's how old this is. And she's got an ASUS burner on here. And I'm going to swing around the back, and we can see that on the computer. We've got 4 USB 2 ports. We've got one here that's got an ASUS device. We've got a second one here. And we've got 2 right here, right next to the network. We've got an eSATA port, which is interesting. And then right next to that, we've got a FireWire port, which we don't do anymore. So what I'm going to do is I'd like to turn this on and verify it works before I start working on it. So I'm going to plug in 2 USB devices, which will be the keyboard and the mouse. Now at the time, when this was new, you were expected to plug in now I've got another cable here that looks like USB 2 to USB-C. I don't know what that goes to. So I'm going to get a keyboard and a mouse plugged in. Got to get my HDMI. And this says onboard video. And I have got to get a cable set, so y'all bear with me just a minute. Whenever I work on a computer, I like to verify that the computer works before I do anything. Because if the computer doesn't work, then we've got other issues. So I've got a keyboard and a mouse. I need a power. Do we have a power cable? Did you bring that, Jeannie? Did you bring a power cable? If you didn't bring a power cable, I've got one. I'll just have to find it. Okay, I've got a power cable. I found one too. And this computer should come up on input 1. Powering up. Monitor should come up. And we're going to have a mouse pad. Computer's coming up. Starting Windows. Oh, got to change the cable. I'd pull that cable off. Back to the converter. Technology's great when it works. When it doesn't, it says it's coming up, but I don't see anything.
It was up and then it just went off.
Then it went disappeared.
See, you've got a yellow instead of a blue light there.
Yeah, the amber light means the monitor is on, and I saw the DOS.
It was blue before.
Yep, means it's not getting the signal for whatever reason. Making sure everything's plugged in correctly. I may have to go back in and configure the BIOS to see the HDMI. It may be seeing DVI. So if that's what it's doing.
Does it have anything to do with this Wi-Fi?
No, that's not going to bother it.
Okay.
We're not seeing video, so I'm going to have to go back into Windows. I've got to get out of Windows and reboot the computer. How did you have the monitor hooked up? Were you using DVI?
The monitor's over here, but I don't know anything about it.
Okay, show me the cable you were using on it. It was using VGA. Okay. So we may have to go into the BIOS and tell it to see HDMI before we'll see anything. Well, I can hook up her monitor and I will be able to see it, but you will not be able to see it on the screen because it has to go in through a converter. And that reminds me, I've got to change that back to SDI. I've got 1080p and I've got 1080i. So I need to get the computer rebooted. Because what I think we're going to end up doing is taking the front off of this and see if we can put USB 3 on it. But first of all, I've got to be able to see the screen. So this is going to take just a minute for this to shut down. Then I'll turn it back on and go into the BIOS.
Your monitor changed to blue.
Okay, now it shows a signal. It'll come up blue. There it is. I see it over there on the converter now. I need to get into the BIOS. There we are. Okay, what I'm looking for is integrated peripherals, on chip, USB. I don't see the video. Advanced BIOS. Onboard VGA, right there it is, DVI D sub. So I'm going to change that to HDMI D sub. HDMI D sub. So when she plugs this in at home on VGA, which is the D sub, that'll work, and it'll work here for now for us for HDMI. This is an older machine, so at least I knew what I was doing. So we're going to save this F10. We're going to go yes. Okay. This should come back up. Remember, folks, this is live, so you see it as it happens. And while we're waiting on that, what I'm going to do, and you know, when you prepare to do something, you got to be prepared all the way. I wasn't sure if I was going to go into a 3.5 inch or a 5 1/4 inch bay. But what I have is a 2-port USB 3 front panel device. So I'm going to put that on the front of the case. I have a bay converter if I needed it. I won't. And I have an I.O. card. So I'm going to put this I.O. card in the computer, and I'm going to put this on the front. This will give her 2 USB 3 ports out the front and 2 USB 3 ports out the back. Now this motherboard probably has another connector on board for some more USB 2 ports, but it's not a good idea to add more USB 2 ports. We need some USB 3. Now you won't get through full throughput, 5 gigabit, but you'll do better than USB 2. And I'm still waiting to see something on screen. See if it comes up. I told it HDMI. And I'm not getting anything up on screen. So what I'm going to do, my monitor went dark again, no signal. We'll shut it down for just a second, and I'm going to take this computer, go direct to the monitor without the converter to solve my problem temporarily. Because once I get the computer up, then I'll see if I can put it back on the converter so I can show you what's going on. I didn't have time to do this ahead of time because we were getting ready for other stuff. So when this comes back up, I'm going to go back into the BIOS again. And the only way you're going to see that is over my shoulder with the monitor because I'm not on the converter. So I'm going into the BIOS. Okay, I'm back into the BIOS. I'm going back to the advanced D sub HDMI. I should be seeing it. It may have required turning the computer off for that to work. So we're going to see if this works now. F10, yes. Let's see if I keep a signal. I doubt resolution was the problem. This display in here should be able to do 1080. So I'm getting screen. System's booting. Yeah, Windows is starting. Then I'll go back to the converter. I'm going to get Windows up first. So at least I know the display. This is typical stuff. Whenever you're working on a computer, before you open it, you want to make sure everything works. And that's what I'm doing before I touch it. Otherwise, I could be creating a problem for myself, and I would just be compounding it. Okay, Windows is coming up. Wow, this has Windows 7 on it. I didn't realize, I didn't remember. Another thing I'm going to suggest is to run BellaArc Advisor. I asked Jeannie to send me a copy of that, and when I got to the point where I said not PDF it, it'll be an HTML document, but zip it. She says, how do you do a zip file? I said, bring it in and we'll do it there. Okay, so Windows is up, so now I'm gonna see if I can put it back on the converter. So we come out. We go in. You should get a signal. We go out. And I'm not on one. So chase down the red. Yep, I'm on one. We had it up there before. Back to configuration. I'm on SDI. Well, for some reason, it's not going to show it. Nothing I can do about it. That makes 3 computers today that I'm aware of that didn't like the decimator. Very unusual. So you'll just have to take my word for it, what I'm going to show you. Okay, I've got a signal and I can see it. So I have verified that the computer works. If I were to plug in a network cable, then I could install BellaArc and run a report, because the purpose of that is to verify, even though she has that wireless adapter for that ASUS, I want to verify the hardware that's in here. What I'm looking for is the motherboard brand, model, revision number, and it'll also tell me the BIOS date. So we're going to go get BellaArc. BellaArc Advisor. I'll have to accept it over my shoulder. We're going to download it and install it. Now we're going to run it. And I'm going to do a report. Once I have the report, agree, install. This will be the latest version. We'll update. Updating definitions. Now it's interrogating the machine, and it'll interrogate the network, which is fine. And what I'm going to do when I shut this down is I'll pull the lid on it, because we're going to put an I/O card on it, and I'm going to look at the front and decide where the best place is going to be to put this front panel hub. Now, this particular front panel hub is made by Vantec. I've used these before on other computers. That's why I like a computer with a case. And this will give me 2 USB 3 ports. It's got the 20-pin connector, and it'll plug into this I/O card we're going to put on the inside. So we're updating the profile. Now this is going to be an HTML document, Jeannie, and what I'm going to do is once it shows me what I want, let's see, we are using the Chrome browser. So I'll back out of the, well, I'll wait till I get there. I'm going to back out of the URL, save that file to the hard drive, then I'll right-click on that file where I've saved it, and I'll say zip it. I believe Windows 7 had that capability. I think they started doing that with Vista. %, 96%, updating the profile. I think this is a phenome, which means it's probably 2 cores, 4 threads. For what you want to do, it'll do the job. But when you decide later, do you want to do a laptop? I've already got one in mind for Tommy. Tommy's not here today. And I've got one in mind for Vicky. Vicky's not here today. I hope they're all right. ASUS. I found another ASUS that's in the $1,300 range. It's not on sale, but it's at Costco. My only concern, it uses 2 drives. And I wanted to use it as an example to show people with 2 drives how to set that up so the stuff is not saved to the C default drive, but let Windows save it to the other drive and create all that structure. There's a number of ways you can do that, and you can do the extreme, which will make Windows freak out. But it's only got a 256 gig M.2 NVMe C drive, but then it has a D drive that's a 1 terabyte, 7200 RPM. So it's got a lot of stuff on it. It does not have, it's not up to par with the Asus Zen laptops, but I'd put it right below it. Those Asus Zens were $1,250, this is $1,300. The other option would have been an HP that on sale was $1,500, and it just, I couldn't justify it. I think this Asus is going to be better for them. And the nice thing about, again, getting it from Costco, they'll have 90 days. If they change their mind and don't like it, then get rid of it. Okay, this is, wow, this is an Athlon 64. This is not a Phenom. So it's an Athlon 64 dual core 6000 plus. It's older than I thought it was. So I'm going to back out to the temp directory. It shows me the file. I'm going to do a save link as. I'll save it under the downloads. I'm going to bring up Explorer. I'm going to go to the downloads. Which would be users. She changed the username. Interesting. There's another way we should have done that, and I didn't think about that.
I don't.
Because the account name should have been changed to let it update. Okay, I'm looking for, there's my file. So I'll right click. I'm going to send to compressed folder. I now have a zip file. So now all I need to do is email that to me. So I'm going to take that file and I'm going to make a copy of it and I'm going to put it on your desktop.
Okay, whatever.
And all you have to do is take that and attach it. Otherwise, I'll stick a memory stick in here when we get through and I'll copy it over.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I've proven I've got my HTML document. And I'm going to check the BIOS date. This is running Windows 7. 2013. 11/25/2013 was when Windows 7 was installed. The BIOS date is 2009. Wow. Wow. Wow, this thing has 4 gigs of memory in it, which means this is DDR1 probably. You think it's DDR2? Well, could be. Could be. So anyway, we know what's there. I don't need to look at the USB ports. I could do that. But what I want to do is I prove it's working. I want to shut it down, and then I'm going to open it up. Good old screwdriver. And as soon as that shuts down, now this I.O. card, I was very particular about the chipset. I didn't want to use a VIA chipset for the I.O. card. A VIA chipset for a hub, different matter. This is the Renesas chipset, NEC Renesas. And that's what I'm going to put in this. It's a little bitty card. So what I want to do, that's off. Turn the power, make sure it's off. Yep. Pull that just to make sure. Now, 2 things I need to do is I need to pull this lid off. This is still one of my favorite cases. This was the case we built a lot of machines on, Foxconn. And that was back when the Foxconn and Intel were doing that thing with that cone. It was a big deal at the time. Not so much now. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our slots. We have 2 slots in there. That's all we need is 1. And we're going to put this I.O. card in one of those slots. So I'm going to swing a chair around here where I can sit down. And as far as the drive on the front, I think what we're going to do is I'm going to pop this front off. And the easiest place would probably be to put it right on the front, right underneath that floppy drive. So all we have to do, is somebody else has been popping these panels around.
I promise it's not me.
Well, they're loose. It's easy to do. They're not tight like they were when they were new. Yeah, they're not holding in tight like they used to. Interesting. Now, there should not have to be a driver installed. This should just work automatically. But again, we're not Windows 10, we're Windows 7, but it still should work. We've got a panel here to pull out. Now, there's a cage. I can take that cage out.
That's amazing. I've never seen in there.
And I can pop out that panel.
I know.
Yep, that's going to do what we want. Now, screws came with this, so I'm going to put a couple of screws in this to hold this in on each side. Because usually the USB stuff, and that's why I like this one from Vantec, it's metal. A lot of these are plastic, and they've either got plastic threads or they'll have the brass inserts. And those brass inserts will just pull right out. You need something that's got some grip. This will have some grip. It won't come loose. Number 2 Phillips is too big, so we'll go to number 1 Phillips. That'll work. You didn't know he was going to do this, did you, Jeannie?
No, I'm amazed. I didn't know what was inside that computer.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Gil, when I open up my computer, it's got a lot more dust in it.
That sounds like fun. Should have brought a magnetic screwdriver.
I've never seen one.
That's a do as I say, not as I do.
Oh, wow.
Couple of screws on each side that'll hold that in. It's metal, it won't come loose. So when you're plugging whatever into that, it'll stay put. You can also plug your USB 3 hub into this, front or back. So you won't have to worry about not having enough ports. Now what you'll have to be aware of is most hubs that have a lot of ports on them, the first 3 ports may be one chipset, and the other ports are another chipset. Depends on how it's set up. The reason I mention that, if you plug in devices, of course it's powered, but if you plug in devices like hard drives, you may get into a problem because the secondary chipset can't support the devices that have to have power. I'm just saying, FYI. Now there are screws that can lock that in, but that tab pulls that in, and I've got one I/O panel on the back. Now we're going to do the card, and I'm going to determine probably the first slot. We'll go back to number 2. Now this I/O card again has 2 USB 3 ports on the back, coming out the back. And internally, it'll have the connector here, and I just realized we're going to have a power tap, and I forgot about that. Shoot. This power supply is not going to have a SATA tap. This is not going to work. I didn't bring a power cable. Does anybody have a Molex to SATA power cable? Yeah, me neither. Everything in here. Oh, wait a minute. Take that back. It'll work. We're still in business. There is some SATA in here. How many SATA do we have? Can I free up another SATA? Those are all Molex. Yep, I got another SATA here. Yep, never mind. I don't want to disturb the SATA for the drives, so there's another SATA cable up here I'm going to pull out that'll give me power. This is something to be aware of. Some of these cards have a Molex power tap. I forgot about this one having SATA. So I'm going to pull that cable out. And of course, SATA is keyed. So we're going to check the key. Plug that in. And before I put the rest of this together, make sure my other cable goes in. Yep, it's got a key. Well, that's a snug fit. Good. That fit better than a lot of motherboards. See which I/O panel I'm going to take loose.
Okay.
I'll go to the one next to where a video card would go. So these two extra panels, you'll want to hang on to those parts. You might need them. You never know. Oh, wow. There's only one place that'll go. That's a PCI. That's PCI Express. That's how old this board is. Wow. I didn't realize that. So many things we take for granted. There's only one slot in here, and we're putting an I/O card in it. Video is on board. This should be good use of resources and give you some more life for this computer to see if this project you're getting into is going to do what you want. Okay, now before I close anything up, I've got my data cable plugged in. I've got power to that card. What I want to do now is power this up and see, as Joe would say, we're ready for the smoke test. And I'm not putting the front panel back on yet until I'm satisfied with what I've done. So I'm going to power it back up. Yeah, I think I can. I'm sorry those front panels don't fit tight, but there's nothing I can do about it. You don't want to glue them in. Okay, 2 USB 3 ports on the front, 2 USB ports out the back. We put in two things. We put in an I/O card with the Renesas chipset, the NEC chipset. That'll be for steady throughput. And then we put the Vantec 2-port USB 3 front panel hub in, metal. And if I had needed to go through a 5 1/4 bay, I was also prepared with that. SilverStone makes what they call a bay converter, 5 1/4 to a 3 1/2 inch. Again, this is metal to metal, so those, when they screw down tight, they stay together. So let's turn this on and see what we've got. And I'm sorry we can't put it up on screen. Don't know why it's not going, but I guess it helps if I turn it on. Now, when this comes up, Windows should find the device and install a driver for it. We're going to see. We've got a network connection, so if it has to go out and install the driver, it can. AHCI, 2 drives, the Asus burner and the hard drive. This has a 250 gig hard drive in it. Wow.
Can you scoop the tower to the left about 3 inches?
Yes, I can. How's that?
You all right?
Sorry. You know, for someone that's been on steroids, I'm doing pretty good. And I'll put a link up in this video to these parts. I got these on Amazon. I've used this card I have not used before, but the front panel device from Vantec I've used lots of times. Now, it would be nice if the front of that had room to do more stuff, but for this computer, this is adequate. Let's see if the driver will show it. I'm going to go to the device manager as soon as Windows gets finished booting. We'll see what we've got. Okay, so far so good. Let's see if I can turn that just a little bit. Does that help? Okay, device driver was not successfully installed. Click here for details. No driver found. Okay, so we're going to have to see if we can find one. Ah, there's a disk in here. Well, there's also a power cable that I was asking everybody for. I'm telling you. You know how we are, we don't read manuals. And there's a CD in here. That looks like a music CD. I'm going to set that right there for now. So I can put this little disc in. Wow. And it just sits there. See if we can get a driver installed. Now this may come up automatically. I'm going to bring up Explorer. Oh, there it is. I saw it. Yeah. Open. And yep, Renesas. USB 3 host driver.
You should have seen what he did the first season. He did to me.
Manual PDF. We'll do setup.
Change the battery on motherboard. And they said, we're using a solder sucker. I said, what?
Extracting driver.
He's pulling cards out, throwing them all over the place. Don't worry about it. Yes, you did.
The install shield will install. Let me see if I can do this a little bit better.
Way back.
Yeah, that
I
helps.
mean, my blood pressure went up 40 points.
Okay. Accept.
Yeah.
Good old Eula.
My personal machine. Bits and pieces all over.
And that's the Renesas USB 3 host driver. 30230 setup. There's a Word document, a PDF file. There's also a Linux driver here.
Soldering iron, one-handed.
The Install Shield Wizard is installing the Renesas Electronics USB 3 host controller driver. This card is a brand I've never heard of
They come in little rounds.
called Mailiya. PCI Express to USB.
About that size.
2 USB 3 ports. Based on the specs for the chipset, I chose this one over one I've used before. On a lot of the AMD machines, it's important that the USB 3 ports, whatever that chipset they used, is not a good always on throughput chipset. I don't know why. That's why I want to be sure I use this particular driver, this particular chipset. Let me back out, close that. Let's see if we can bring up Device Manager. Device Manager. And it looks like we are in business. There's the Renesas USB 3 host controller and the Renesas USB 3 hub. So what we're going to do to verify it, I've got a USB 3 memory stick here. I don't know if there's anything on it or not, but I'm going to plug this into the front and see what happens. And it resets and it shows USB mass storage device. So I'm going to bring up Explorer. And I expected to see the drive, but I don't. That drive may not even have anything on it. Does anybody else have a memory stick that's got something on it we can try and take a look at? You got one, Jack? Yeah. You got something on it? Yeah. Okay, that'll help. That one may be brand new. The other one I was using, I had to dump because it quit working on me. Oh boy, you're getting fancy now. That's pretty cool. My goodness. Let's see if that'll show us something. Yep, there it is.
Oh,
cool.
thank you, thank you.
Okay, so we know it works. We know there's something there. So we're in business.
What about the things she's bought, the extra pieces?
One thing at a time. I want to get that far. So I'm going to tell it to disconnect. I don't want to corrupt his drive. Eject USB. Safe to remove. Okay. On the very basic level, we verified that everything works. That's what I wanted to find out. Now we're going to plug in Genie stuff. Thank you, Jack. Thanks, Robert. And thanks, Ben, for running the camera.
Okay.
So she has USB 3 on the front and the back. So the next thing we need is her toys to see if her camera's going to work. And it should.
It's brand new.
So
No, I'll see pictures of little kids.
I'm going to remove it from this cardboard. I hope you don't mind.
I don't.
Already got your name on it on a sticker.
I was afraid if it got lost.
Okay, this is Logitech. So we can plug this in from the front or we can plug this in from the back.
Yeah. Okay, it doesn't matter.
And that's a USB 2 device, but it'll work on a USB 3 port. Now I'm going to go back to Device Manager. Imaging device, Logitech webcam, there it is.
Yay.
The easy way to test the camera to see if it's working is to install Skype. Skype will do a test, and the test can show you audio and video, because you'll get audio and video out of this.
Okay.
On the side, that may be lights. There should be audio from that as well. That side is probably the mic. So the camera works, but if you actually wanted to see video on it, we'd have to have something like Skype. If you have not installed Skype, then we wouldn't see it. We'd have to go download it.
I have not installed Skype.
Okay, do you want to do that right quick?
If you know how.
Do I know how?
Silly question, but...
Boy, I tell you, this...
But go ahead if you can do it. I don't want these fans of yours to wait too long.
I'm going to do Skype. I want Windows. I'm going to download it. So we're going to download Skype to downloads. And I'm hoping it'll let me do a test without having to go through all that other rigmarole. There's Skype. So we're going to run it. I'm hoping we can test without having to plug an account into it. Skype's an easy way to test that camera. Skype's installed. Okay, there Skype pops up. Yeah, it's going to make us sign in. So you're going to have to create an account before we can test it. But anyway, Skype is on here now. So instead of doing a sign in, if you don't have an account, create an account. Create an account name and a password, and then you can do the test. And once your phone number, it wants to verify who you are for real, go through all that. So I'm not going to do that right now, but it's pretty self-explanatory.
I'll find it.
Okay. Anyway, the program's installed, so it's easy to, once you have this up now, you can test, but you have to log into that account.
Got a shortcut on this?
And there's a shortcut on the desktop. And there's help there that can walk you through all that. And the shortcut on the desktop is down here in the bottom right-hand corner. Right down there, it says Skype. So you'll be in business. It'll also be running in the background. Okay, that's one thing installed. Now the other is your headphones. And you can plug this stuff in the front or you can plug it in the back, whatever you prefer. So now your headphones also have a mic on them. Supposed to. I
Yeah,
see.
Gil, I think she wants the mic on the headphones to be dominant also.
Yep, that'll have to be set. So that would go down on the right ear. That's your microphone. Once we flip that down. You understand?
Yes.
Okay, so we're going to plug that in on the front. That'll make that easy. I hope that doesn't conflict with what I've got. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the device manager, and the device manager should tell us sound video controllers. There's your camera. There's your USB audio device, which is what's on my head. And I'm going to go to the control panel and see if it'll show us. And you don't have an icon for control panel up here. Okay, so we'll go to control panel. I'm going to change that to something easier for me to see. Oh wow, I'm already hearing it in the headphones. It defaulted to it, which I'm surprised because usually HDMI is the default. So if I show the icons for sound down here in the speakers in the bottom right corner, it shows these speakers USB that's plugged in right now. I can hear myself. So I didn't have to go change the default. Now when you plug in your analog speakers, plug the analog speakers first in, then plug these in, and this should take over. But if it doesn't, then you go into control panel, and we're looking at sound, and it shows the speaker's USB audio device. Right there they are. And the analog speakers aren't plugged in, and of course the HDMI is because of the video. Now for recording, it shows the microphone on the webcam. Notice as I talk, it's showing audio on that microphone. Or you've got the microphone on these headphones, which is right here. Testing. The microphone on that camera is more sensitive than this microphone. But we could set this as default. We don't need to configure speech recognition. We don't need to do that. But as I click on it and I hear the Windows sounds, when you're working with somebody online, you want to be able to hear them and not these sounds clicking around. So I'd go into sounds and tell Windows to be quiet. The Windows sounds, Windows default.
Okay.
I'm going to tell that, where is it? No sounds. Afternoon, character, cityscape, delta, there it is, no sounds. Apply. And if I wanted to hear a sound, see, everything's turned off. So I won't hear that. But if I want to record, testing 1, 2, testing. Testing 1, 2. That mic is not that sensitive. So you may be better off using the microphone on the camera.
Okay.
You're getting better. I'm getting better sound if you notice the bar from that microphone. But remember, you'll have 2 microphones plugged in, the camera as well as these headphones. And you'll have to get that positioned where you want it, because usually this little foot is made so that it sits on top of the camera. And remember, when you're not using it, this one doesn't have, the model above this does, this one doesn't have a eye, so cover it or unplug it so someone doesn't activate it. Just one of those things to remember. Okay, now the next thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to configure that any further because it's going to depend on what you do and how far you go. All we're doing is verify everything works. And with the default sounds, I can hear sounds coming out of these headphones. So the next thing is, let's check your hub. It's a powered hub, and that's a good idea. And because it's USB 3, that's all the ports you're ever going to need. But without a USB 3 port, this USB 3 hub was kind of pointless. So we get around here and plug in some power. Let's see, I've got to figure where I can put that. Wall wart. Now on the back of this, I've got a power button. Turn that over. I've got a power button. I've got power in the center to plug into. Then I've got the USB 3 to plug into the cable, and it includes the cable. So first thing we're going to do, and that cable is short, I'm going to plug in power. I'm going to set it here on the table. And I'm going to plug in data cable to this hub. And you can plug this into the front or the back, whichever one you want, whichever one works better for you. I'll plug it into the front. And we might see something down here on Windows. I didn't, so I'm going to go to Device Manager. I'm going to unplug it. Oh, it helps if you turn it on. Okay, it's got a little blue light, turns on, refreshes, and oh, it says it's a USB 2 hub. That's interesting. Blue ports are usually USB 3. There is no print or documentation. Ah, here's some documentation. USB hub. The back of that clearly says USB 3. But that says USB 2 and USB 3. So what we're going to need to do is install a driver for it that I don't see. Connect the USB hub, plug in the cable, connect the power supply, and turn it on. One of them got a driver. Let's see if the other one will get a driver for it. I'll go down here to Windows on the bottom right-hand corner. It may be doing it right now. Yeah, there we are. Device is ready to use. We just had to wait a minute. Let's go back over. And it did. We just had to wait. Magic. So it did install a driver. It just took a minute. So now you can plug in stuff to your little heart's desire. So if you want to plug your camera in through that, it should work. So the Renesas, I'm going to unplug that and see what we get. Interesting. This also has a Renesas chipset in it. I expected it to be VIA. This is good. This is very good. Both of them are Renesas. Plug it back in. Yep. Renesas USB 2 and Renesas USB 3. So not all of these are USB 3 ports, even though they show that they are. I'll bet you the first 3 are USB 3, and those others may be USB 2. We'd have to plug in devices and find out. I may have a USB memory stick on me, other than the one I used a while ago, that has something on it. This is a USB 2 stick. Oh, you got one, Robert? Even better. USB 3?
Yeah.
Fantastic. It's got stuff on it?
I think so.
Okay. Let's go down to port number 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see what we get. Very nice. It's even got a light, shows drive activity, showing it's been connected. Device manager resets itself. And there's the camera upload has started. I'll cancel it. I'll bring up Explorer, and there's the disk. So we see it. So we'll go down here to the bottom right, and I'll tell Windows to disconnect, eject. Do what? I'm counting the ports down from the top.
No, how do you know if it's USB 2 or USB 3?
I don't yet. These all look like USB 3 to me. BellArc should. Looking in the device manager, we should be able to tell. Based on what the driver was showing a while ago, it said USB 2 and USB 3, but right now, this looks like this may all be USB 3. That's impressive. They all look like USB 3. They're all blue. I'm going to go down to the very bottom.
USB 3 on their line.
Well, there are some hubs that have 2 chipsets in them. I agree. That's like laptops ought to have blue, but they don't. They're all black. Okay, that's good. Now I'll go to the top. I did a sampling of this. Port 1, port 4, and the last port. That whole thing is USB 3. I guess that's some of that Missouri blood in me. Show me. I wanted to verify. It works. Thanks, Robert. I appreciate it. You did better with yours. My other memory stick just died. It doesn't work anymore. That's why I had to get a new one out. I'm going to try mine again and see what it does. Maybe I got lucky. I don't think there's anything on this. This is a 64 gig. Yeah. See what it does. Port number 3. SanDisk Extreme. There it is. Open to view files. See, it's still brand new. It's got the stuff on it that SanDisk put on it. So we've extended the life of that computer for you, Jeannie.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So what else did we need to do to it? Was that it?
That's it.
Okay.
Don't unplug anything.
I'm going to take this disc out. This is a
Take
this
it
is a
home
dr-
like that.
this is a driver disc.
Okay.
You want to hang on to that just in case. That's a little rascal. And I'm going to put your CD back in here. That looks like a music CD. So, any questions? Okay, so we got Jeannie up and running. Now, next week, Ray, did you get your router?
I got it.
Are we going to look at your router next week?
I'm all confused.
You're what?
I'm all confused.
You're all confused.
Yeah, it's amazing what it will do, but then I'm comparing it to a router that was 7 years old.
Oh, well,
So, you know, it does all kinds of things that other people have probably been doing for years, but I didn't have the ability to do them.
will you feel
So
like
we need to talk and see if it's worthwhile to talk about it.
Good. Can you change the account name?
I can.
Good. Changing the account name and the password, that's a thing that's got going for it. The one we had last week, you could change the password, but you couldn't change the account name, which was a negative. So that's a good thing. So let's look at it next week. So next week, folks, we're going to look at Ray's ASUS router. And you've also got, what's the antivirus that's in there?
Oh,
It's using Trend Micro?
Yeah.
That'll be curious.
Yeah, and of course, the antivirus is done through the router as opposed to the computer. I'm still going to run it on my computer also.
Interesting. Well, we're going to do that next week. Folks, hope you enjoyed this today. It went kind of long, but I appreciate everybody's patience. And I want to thank everybody for subscribing and thumbs up. Again, this was live. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next week. Y'all have a great day.